All right. Oh, I shared with you earlier, if I happen to make it to heaven, and I know a lot of people are real confident about heaven and stuff like that, and I admire people that are. I feel like, praise the Lord, if I heard the trumpet, I'd know I was coming off the ground. But if I get there and I see any electronics or any kind of equipment, I'll know that I'm not in heaven. I'm in the alternative, okay? Because my life is full of this stuff. And this is the thing about it, too, is this, when we do these things, it never gets finished. You never have, it's like, I mean, if Brian works on something, building a house or he's building something, it gets finished and he can step back and grin real big. But this goes on forever, 24 hours a day. It's crazy. It really is. Megan, I'm glad that you're here. No reason to be nervous, but I know we talked about a lot of things, and got to talk to Brian a lot the other day, and just met you back on July the 4th, and which, if we do have another July the 4th, and we have it every year, Brian's not invited, but you and the boys can come, okay? But due to him taking advantage of the family in cornhole, okay? And because he really, and I got to thinking about a lot of things that he did. First thing, he got the bags that were old, that we'd used, and he gave us the new bags, which were slicker, slid off the thing. So next time when he comes, we're only going to give him one bag. And we're all going to have 3 or 4 and let it, I think it'll be more fair, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, he's good at it.
All right. Let's talk some just a little bit and just share some when we talk about recovery and coming through things in your life. First thing, where are you from? How did you wind up where you are here?
Well, I'm from Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
I was born and raised there. I had a life full of everything that addiction has to offer. I had been in and out of treatments for several years, and I'm going to say it was probably my 4th time going to treatment. And I moved to North Carolina. I went to a 30-day inpatient treatment center there, and originally when I went, like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go for these 30 days, then I'm going to go back home to the normal stuff, you know. And when I went to the bridge, the Lord just met me there. And it was insane because, you know, my every bit of reservations I had to go back home, you know, everything changed, you know. And so I can remember calling like my mom and them and telling them I'm not coming home, you know. So I ended up staying there for a year. Did really well there. And
What was the bridge?
The bridge is a treatment center in North Carolina. I did 30 days there, and then when it was time for me to go, you know, by the end I was like, I can't go home. You know, I was not ready to go home. So I moved to Locust, and I lived there, which is still in North Carolina.
Okay.
I lived there for a year, and that's actually where I met Brian. And we got married, and we had babies, and we, you know, and we ended up moving to another place in North Carolina, and we had just been there. We came down, you know, on vacation down here, and he was like a little kid. Anytime he gets around the mountains, he's like a little kid, you know. So he was just all about the trout fishing and just the mountains and just being outside and all the things. And I could see that in him, you know, and it was really cool because he would always bring the boys into that. And so we came down what I thought was just, you know, a vacation. And, you know, shortly after that, and I mean shortly, 2 weeks probably, we were talking about possibly moving here. And within, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months, we were here. And so it was a big change, big difference for us, but it's been awesome. It's been really good.
Yeah. Well, so when you think about recovery, you went several times. How come? How come you went several times?
Well, the problem was I tried to do it all without the Lord, and you can't do that. Okay. You know, I would do good when I was in the recovery scene, but when I would go back home to my normal, you know, it just. I couldn't do it on my own. You know, I didn't understand that I needed to completely change. You know, I didn't understand that I needed a new heart. All the things that you have to stay committed to sobriety. I didn't know that then, you know, and once I finally was able to like hear from the Lord and really have my first encounter with the Lord, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know, I think it's fascinating when you think about it, and I know and I'm not overly familiar. okay? And I understand that I have my own addictions. Sausage biscuits. Or
Right.
if I ever got on the Oxycontin, I'd be a mess. Okay, I just would, between
Right.
Oxycontin, between sausage biscuits and Chips Ahoy cookies,
Right.
I pretty much have had to lick. And I get people tell me all the time what I need to do, and the same thing I guess when you talk about an addiction, in a way, but does how big an influence are we talking about and I know it is, and I ask it but the people that you're around.
Oh, it matters.
I mean,
Oh, it absolutely matters. And that's another thing that I didn't realize then. Looking back now, I can see it. I can definitely see it because, I mean, even today, if I'm around certain people, that do certain things, naturally, we're creatures of habit, right? So we do those things. We start talking that way. All the things, So who you surround yourself with absolutely is critical for a person in recovery.
I believe that's a big part of the battle that we find in all these things that we do. I mean, if an old boy, if you get around people who want to fight, just soon you can say, I'm just going to whip somebody too.
Right.
Okay, and the same thing. And it comes down to with so many facets of our life. I believe I had a guy one time said, I can't quit smoking. I said, don't quit smoking, just quit buying them. And the people you have to bum off of will help you quit. All right, so the same thing. I think so many times in life, there's these simple things that we can do for us, the people we're around.
Right.
And when we get around gloom and doom and people that are, that always feel like a victim and always feel like this, and that's a hard. And then I know this, that there are victims, okay? And I'm not, that's like, when we talk about depression, okay, it's real in people's lives, okay? But there's a certain level, I believe, that you have to get up and say, hey, I'm not going to do this. This is not going to be in my life. I'm not going to live my life like this. I'm going to make a difference. Right. And I think that there's a responsibility that's the hardest part, and it sounds like that's sort of where you're at.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Being responsible.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing, man.
Yeah.
I don't, I said before, if Mom and Dad would have let me just come back home, I would have been just fine. I'd have been in by 9 o'clock. You know what I mean? No loud music.
Right.
But I wouldn't have to be responsible any longer.
Right.
And when we talk about going through, what was the point you got to? What was the breaking point?
Well, honestly, for me, when I went to this treatment center, again, I had no intentions on changing at all. I was just going to get my parents off my back and to be able to see my children again and all of those things. So when I went in, I was, you wouldn't even recognize who I was. I was next level, and so when I went in, I was still on drugs, and they knew that if I didn't go there the way that I was, I wouldn't come. So they let me come, and I detoxed there. I didn't go through a detox program or anything like that. I laid on the couch at this treatment center for days and come off of everything that I was on. But in the process of that, I would still have to do these certain classes that we had to do, and Bible study was one of those classes. And the first night I got there, I still remember what was being taught. And I just heard about the man with the man who was possessed, right? There was many in him. They called him Legion, right? So I remember just hearing that and reflecting on where I was in my life, And for some reason that I just got up. Like you said, I got tired, and so I got up and I would, get super excited about the Bible studies. And, Brian was actually the one that was teaching the Bible studies. And so, he would teach these classes, and it was the first time that I could understand what was being taught, and it was one of those things where, in addiction, you're so dirty, you're so ashamed, you're so full of guilt, you're so all of those things. But when you understand and learn that Jesus loves you, no matter what you have in your closet, no matter how many skeletons are there, no matter what you've done. So that was the game changer for me when I learned that I was loved by a Father who died for me, knowing the way that I lived, and He still loved me. So it just sparked up something in me that just wanted to know who this Jesus was, and it has just been...
It's fascinating, okay? But the thing I think about when I hear you talk about it, and now I'm of the facet of this, and it's all right if we don't agree, okay? I don't mind at all right? Brian and I don't agree a lot, but okay? I don't think everybody can get born again. I believe that he said, my sheep know my voice.
Yeah.
And I believe there's his sheep that he had with him in the beginning, will be with him in the end, that were in his bosom. And they were placed on this earth. Okay? And he calls those, and he reaches for those, and he never stops reaching.
Right.
And we can battle it, and we go through all that stuff. We go through all those issues and challenges. And when you think about it, now see, there's people that listen that cannot even fathom what you've been through.
Right.
Okay, they have no concept, have no idea, can't grasp how hard it must have been. Because and it's like everything else does in other people's lives. Some people look at some people, they think, well, why can't they just do this? Or why can't they just quit?
Right.
Why couldn't they just done that? And, and I understand that, I not to the concept, but I understand how hard it has to be and how much it takes and how much credit you have to really give yourself, and that the Lord empowered you to break away from that hell that was just set to destroy you. And the thing about it is that God loved you as much then as he does now.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to, that is a great breakthrough, ain't it?
Yeah. Oh, that's everything. And the thing is, like, when I would go and then I would go back and I'd go to treatment, I'd go back every time I would relapse. It was because I tried to do it on my own.
Right.
But it wasn't until, I stopped trying.
Right.
It's like you said, I heard his voice. Right. I recognized his voice, and I knew he had something for me, and that was it. I didn't do any of it.
Right.
He did it all.
Right.
And so I can't take any credit for anything in my life because he's done it all. I tried and tried and tried to do it on my own, and every time I would fail. And so it wasn't until I heard that voice, and like you said, you recognize that, and that was the game changer.
I hear you, and I think, man, that takes so much, and and the thing I look at when he said we are laborers together with God, and as I can do all things through Christ Jesus, and how the Lord empowers us, and to make it through those things, and to do that, and to break that yoke of that's on your life,
right?
But it's so important. I think that people that we're around, we just have to be so careful. I mean, I try to be so careful with my life and watch the people that I'm around and people I talk to, and I try to just go on, because you can get in that mode so easy, and you can go back into that so easy, and having those, I don't know, man. I think about the breaking point that you got to, that you said enough is enough.
Right.
I'm not going to do this anymore.
Right.
And how God reached down and just sparked that inside of you.
Right.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a blessing. I'm telling you, and I just I pray so hard that other people can, because I'm not special. He can do that for them. He wants to do that for them. I know a lot of people, in my past life, that need the same deliverance that I got, and it's available to them, and it's just one of those things where is once you have it, again, like I understand where you're saying as far as who you hang around with and that kind of thing, but when you have been delivered from that, you want to shout it from everywhere, and let everyone know about it, because it's available to them, so there's a fine line for me in between, to hang around people who are lost, and to just try to keep it to myself, that's not right, so what I have, I want to give away, just because that's what we're called to do, I
like it, and I like what you're saying, and it is a fine line, okay, and I mean, that's a line you got to walk in the area that God's called you in your life.
Right.
You have to, I'm blessed enough to where I'm around some people from time to time that and I'm very lenient with people too. Janice says I'd make excuses for Charles Manson. I really do work because I know life's hard sometimes. Right. But also, and I'm real big on you gotta get up and go. And I believe that's why people are called for different places in this overall ministry of this life God's gave us. That we're called for different things. I'm not overly. I am compassionate, okay, but I'm not comforting,
right?
Okay, and I've got friends that can just take you and just love you to another level, okay. I'm real bad for shut up and get over it, okay. Now my problem is I have to live with that in my own life, Okay, I've always thought when you joined a church, you should climb through the window first 30 days, make sure you really want to be there.
Right.
Okay, because people just the way we treat that gospel, and the way we treat that, the way we treat it, we have to sometimes. I think it's so important, and we have to say, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I take care of it. I want to make sure that I'm sensitive to it and sensitive to people. And there's people that are gifted like that can do that. They can really be gifted. Brian seems like he's got that. You seem like you got that.
Yeah.
And I think that's why God uses you in that position.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've worked with it.
I tell you, all the things that I used to be ashamed of, that I used to want to hide, you know, those have been the biggest opportunities to be able to share with, especially with women, you know, because with women and children and addiction and recovery, it's hard, you know, because 90% of women would rather just live in addiction to be with their children than to, you know, go away for a while to better themselves for their kids, you know. So it's just one of those things where, you know, you if you have it, you give it away.
Don, we can go ahead. Let's go ahead and run it. What I'm thinking about, okay, is many people, when we think about this, people don't understand how complicated recovery can be, because sometimes people just tell them, just quit. Why don't you just quit? And I mean, how did you, I know we talked some about it, you explained how you went in this recovery program, but it's complex too. I mean, it's a lot to stay at this thing. And I know we talk about the Lord, okay? And I'm going to make it a little hard on you, okay? And I know that your foundation is the principles of God helping you. But you physically had to make some changes.
Yeah.
What were they?
Well, I had to be willing to go first.
Okay.
So once I was willing to go, I had to be willing to do whatever it took to stay sober. You know, I did everything in the world you could imagine to stay high all the time. You know, I had to apply the same effort towards my recovery, you know, and I wouldn't have never been able to do that had it not been for the people that I surrounded myself with, right? In AA, they call it sponsorship, but in, you know, I call it ministry,
Right.
But it's so important. It's discipleship. It's who you know, walk alongside, who teaches you how to live a normal, clean life. Because for my whole life, I didn't know how to do that, you know. So I had to learn how to just be normal and love myself with all my flaws, with all those things. That way, you know, I had to stay away from places I knew that would bring out the worst in me. I don't talk to hardly anyone that I used to, but I mean, the thing about it is those people that I used to hang around wouldn't know who I am now anyways, you know, and the people that I hang around now can't hardly imagine who I used to be. So it's one of those things where it's all about people, it's all about places, it's all about things, it's all about just your mind. You have to be willing to do whatever you have to do to stay sober and in the midst of everyday life.
See, I think that's the part that you're tapping into there, that you had to make those changes. You had to push yourself to that. And, you know, it's getting yourself out of the land that you're in sometimes. And I know that's making it sound awful simple, okay, and I don't mean that. But, I mean, getting yourself into the other place that you need to be moving. Leaving the city you live in, okay, the town you live in. I mean, sometimes because you can be around the same old people and they see you the same old way,
Right.
and I don't know. It's not like you're forsaking those things, but I mean, you know, I say a lot of times those are God's people, okay, and He's got a wrench for every nut. And I said, but sometimes you have to look at you, and that might sound a little selfish sometimes, but He sacrificed for the world. And I don't think God wants you to sacrifice for the whole world.
Right.
Okay? And we can sacrifice our sanity, our marriage. I've seen people sacrifice their marriage for friendship, for being somebody's friend. And I'm thinking, or the biggest thing we can do is sacrifice things, you know, for money that are important in our life, our families and our things like that. But you had to make that move in your life physically say, all right, I'm sick of this. But I really believe that's because God reached down in that part of you that was there and lit that on fire, don't you?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The thing about it is, like, even, I mean, before I even was willing to go anywhere, I can remember, like, I would have drugs. I would be on them at the time, and I would just cry, because I was so sick of the chaos that it takes to stay a drug addict. I mean, it is a full-time job plus some, because once you have it, then you got to figure out how you're going to get it next and how much, it's just the whole thing. And I can remember, like, I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea. I just knew that I was so tired of the way that I lived, and so I don't even, like, I can't even tell you how I ended up in North Carolina other than I hopped on Google. And I say that, and then I think about it, and the crazy thing about it is God had his hand on me the entire time, because it's so funny. The same place that I went to, the Bridge to Recovery, I had taken, on my way down there, I had stopped. I was with my dad, and I might tear up a little bit. I had stopped to do everything that I had, all the drugs that I had.
Right.
And the director of the place was calling me, asking me where I was, because I was supposed to be there by a certain time. And if I wasn't there at a certain time, they weren't going to let me come.
Yeah.
So we were at Cracker Barrel, me and my dad, and I took a screenshot of where I was to send it to him, to send to the director.
Right.
And I never paid attention to that screenshot again, and about 6 months into me living in North Carolina and me walking with the Lord, I happened to look at that screenshot. And the screenshot, the road that I was on was called New Hope Road.
Ain't that beautiful? That's beautiful.
And I still, I look back and I'm like, man, I didn't want nothing to do with the Lord. I didn't know who he was.
Right.
But even then, he still, would wink at me. And like I said, that just blew my mind, and it was just little signs like that just happen all the time, and it's like, man, I mean, how can you not serve a God who loves you like that,
And you can't, and we've shared this before, you can't earn that love. Okay, you weren't earning it or something like that. I studied one time, I studied for about 2 years. I've shared that I studied about God the Father and the love of a father. Mm-hmm. And I know some people got rotten fathers and rotten mothers, but I mean, I know the love of that, how much I love my kids and how little they have to do in order to impress me or make me love them. They don't have to do anything, right. Okay? And I think about if I'm like that, rotten as I am, just an old human, think about how much God really loves you. That no matter how down you were or wherever you were, he's kept you, he protected you, he watched over you, he took care of you. Against your will, God took care of you. And I think we get confused about his love sometimes, and we forget how great it really is, and how long-suffering he really is, and that it's not all about heaven and hell, that there's a love that God has. I believe that heaven starts here, and hell starts here in our life. And I think it's the time that we can choose, and we spend our life choosing and working with that thing. But I get to thinking about God's love, how great it really is. How he loved you when you didn't love him. Mm-hmm. He loved you when you didn't even know him. Mm-hmm. I'm of the custom of believing, and I've had people that we had a little issue with, but on this, I think there's going to be people in heaven that didn't know they were going to go. Mm-hmm. And I've had people say, what? That's not what the Bible says, bless God. And they'll get to quoting scriptures at me. I said, well, I think God's a little different. Okay, I don't think it's a trick. I don't think it's all a trick, this world that we talk about and where we're at, that he's trying to trick us and get us. I mean, I believe that he loves us so much. And there's people that, I went in a little village one time. I was been back in the mountains with the Indians for a pretty good while. And I went in a little village, and all they had was the book of John for 10 years. No other Bible. And that's all they had. And so, and when I went in there, they said they wanted to get married first. The whole village full of people hadn't had any weddings. And they said, we want to get married. And they said, okay, well, now we want to dedicate our children because we heard about that. And now we want to be baptized. And I lined them all up and down the hillside. People had never been baptized, never heard nothing about it. And baptized them in that water. And I think about all they had, that's all they had, all the knowledge they had was the book of John.
Right.
And so I think there's so many people out there. And I've dealt with a lot of old hippies, okay, that have talked about the good man upstairs, okay, and that's the way they term the Lord.
Right.
They don't really know him, but they say, man, I tell you something now, the good man upstairs is good to me. And it's fascinating for me to listen to the terms. And being raised in church, you know, you hear everything all your life and you don't think about it, but when you hear them people talk about that and you think of how there's a lot of them that are a lot closer to the Lord than what they think they are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
It's hard to admit.
Yeah.
Okay? I just think of the time I think about in my life that there's so many things that I just didn't reason out. You know, when you think about them in their life, how people would take things and I think my goal, what I want to do is be good to a few people. Stay out of the way of the ones I can't be.
All right.
Somehow let a little bit of light shine somewhere at this point in my life and transfer the information, transfer what's on your heart to people.
Right.
And let them know that they can do it.
Right.
They can do it.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
I agree. And I think for me, you know, it's you know, of course, it's great to be able to vocally express, you know, the changes and that kind of thing, but also just for somebody to be able to see that, you know, as you live and as you do your day-to-day things, you know, that is one of the biggest ways to be able to, you know, really, you know, let them know, hey, yeah, you can do this.
Well, what challenges when you think about things in your life? What kind of challenges really do you run into that you think about in your life? And toward just stay not. I mean, you're past recovery. What I would call recovery. It's not. You're not recovering now. Okay. But I mean, what challenges do you find in your life now?
Well, I mean, I've got a lot of challenges.
Other than Brian.
Yeah, no, he's probably not so bad. No, there's just certain things that, you know, growing up, you know, there's just a lot of things that I need more discipline with. You know, I always struggled with anger. Anger was a big thing for me ever since I was, you know, a teenager. So my anger got me into a lot of bad situations, you know. So that was probably the hardest thing, one of the hardest things that I've had to, you know, see in myself, you know, because, you know, you can't be a born-again believer and want to cuss everybody out and flip out and, you know, all the things, you know. So that's been one of the things. And honestly, my biggest challenge is probably just healthy habits, eating, self-discipline, those kinds of things. That has always been, I never really acknowledged it as a problem until, you know, the last few years. But yeah, that's something I'm working on now. So yeah, I mean, I'm always, you know, there's always something that needs to be worked on. You know, we're never there. We never arrive anywhere. You know, there's always some room to grow in every area. And I have lots of those areas. So.
Well, you know, when you think about those things, all right, you've got children, a whole herd of children.
I do.
You do, and they all boys, which is that's a handful in its own, but that's a good thing. And so tell me about the kids.
Oh man, they're incredible. They push me. They probably help me to see what's wrong in me more than anything else, because like I said, with anger being one of my biggest struggles in my past, you know, it's very easy for me to just want to just rawr when they're not doing what they're supposed to, you know. And there's so many times where I've, you know, went to correct my kids and the Lord's like, now you see, this is, you know, this is what we have to deal with, you know. And it's like, how many times do you not listen, you know? So, I love being a mom, every minute of it, you know. My oldest, he's been through so much for his age, and he is stuck by my side through all of it, you know. And my middle son, Callan, he's a wild thing. He never sits still. He's bouncing all over the place, but God love his heart, you know. He's so sweet, and he is not afraid to hop up in front of 40 people and pray. Like he loves the Lord, and it's awesome. And then my little one, you know, he's a mess. But it's I love being a mom.
Yeah. You know, the little one, I've noticed is a bit of a rambler.
Yeah.
Okay, I know. So on the 4th we lost him several times, and people get, "Where's the baby?" I heard that. I can hear you saying it in my ears now. Where's Brian? Do you know where's the baby? Okay, and he just would go off and just go off with anybody. He seemed like he was pretty much on his own thing there. It was fascinating by that. I mean, I watch him and I was fascinated. The boys are funny to watch. I know when we come back on the 4th, I told Janice, I said, I've got to get some bicycles ready because they gave me orders. Do you have any bicycles? I told Janice, and I have a fleet of bicycles, okay, because somehow I collect them. I can't hardly pass a bicycle because I got mine stole several times when I was a boy. So now every time I see one, I have to buy it. And so I've got them hanging up there in the building all over the place. But I listened to them boys and I watched them just play and have themselves a time. And you could just see the Lord in the midst of all those things. And I think about it, and if you had to set and say, listen, this is a goal, this is a primary goal, one thing I'm really looking at in my life that I really want to I want to work on. This is what I need to work on. What would it be?
Well, I actually started that the beginning of the week. Actually, again. Not only does, like healthier habits and eating and, exercise, all those things, it doesn't just affect, for me, it doesn't just affect my self-image or my weight or all those things. It affects the way that I'm able to be present with my children, because it's a lot harder to get up and go and run and play and do all the things, if I'm just completely out of shape. So the last week or so, I've been really working towards that, to be a present mom who can, just have fun and run and play and all those things. So,
well, Janice is a firm exercise. She exercises a lot. I go to the Y every day. I hate it. Don't like it. Nothing about it I enjoy. But McCarter and I go every morning. We go and 40 minutes of cardio, and we do all those things. But I mean, and I've lost weight, not meaning to, because I've weighed the same thing since 2018.
Right.
I'm 260 pounds no matter what I do. And I don't really try. As long as I feel like I can move and do what I want to do, I feel all right. And now but there's a challenge in that. Are you going to exercise, or are you just going to try to chase the kids more, or what's your commitment there?
Well, I'm doing a little bit of all the above.
Okay.
So I'm doing workouts and stuff at home, and then I'm really watching the things that I'm eating, and I'm just trying to just be present with my kids. Hey, let's go outside, let's go do this, that kind of thing.
Good.
And I feel like once. The root of it is self-discipline, right? I need to develop better self-discipline. So my prayer this morning was like, Lord, just with me, preparing myself, with this, Lord, help it to open up, self-discipline in other areas that I don't even realize that I struggle in, or other areas that I haven't let go of yet, just different things. I just feel like the root of it is self-discipline. And until that is a foundation in my life, things are going to be chaotic still. So that's something that's really been weighing on me for a while, but I'm finally about where I was in recovery. I'm about sick of it,
So we're talking about, but I mean, are we actually talking about jumping jacks and push-ups, or my wife has one of those little trampolines in the living room, which scared me to death. She's on that trampoline thing and the treadmill in the living room, and I mean, she does all that. And then she's got this guy that she does the chair routine with every morning, which seems like she's a little personal with him a lot, because he's telling her, bossing her a lot. If I would have said any of the things he says to her, I'd be slapped. Like, come on, get up. What's wrong with you? If I said that. But I mean, see, you're a little bit vague, is what I'm saying. I mean, are you going to walk more? What are you doing?
So I have.
So now we're getting somewhere.
Okay. So I have the body fitness program that I've got a whole year membership with that. So I'm working out at home. I have a personal trainer. I'm in a classroom setting. I'm lifting weights. I'm doing the whole 9 yards.
Right. See, what I wanted to hear was some kind of a commitment to something. Like at times I'll ask husbands, okay, if you could be a better husband, what would you do? around the house. I'm not talking about laying hands on my wife praying for her. I'm talking about picking up your underwear.
Laundry.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then they'll hit me with that, I just want to be a more spiritual person. And I said, no. I mean, are you ever going to make the bed? Will you wash the dishes? Will you pick up your socks? Okay, I mean, will you wipe the sink off when you're done? I'm real big on that stuff. Okay, I said, I watch so many prison programs. I'm real big on lockup and all that stuff, okay? I watch it all. Border security, I about figured out how to smuggle the cocaine through, okay? I watch all these things, all right? But and I watch so many of them prison programs. I'm always wiping my sink down and cleaning it up, and I'm just about ready to go. But when we look at stuff, making that commitment to that thing, I started... I don't know, it's been a year now. I'm going to the Y for 30 days, only 30 days. And I've been going for like a year, but if I don't leave the house and go, I don't do any good. I have to have that commitment. I follow the same things every time. Janice don't. She's there at the house. She has that discipline about her. She can do it. And other people have different ways they discipline themselves. And I think recognizing that, like you're talking about, saying, I'm going to do this. To follow through with that, because you look at that. If you've got a year membership, you want to get your money's worth out of it.
Right.
You're thinking, I'm going to make sure it's like if you're going to the Dollywood for one day pass, you stay till it closes because you want to get your money's worth.
Right.
And the same thing you look at sometimes is having that commitment and say, I'm going to do that, and it's hard to do.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, just in a week. I already just because I know I'm working towards something,
right.
I already feel better. So I'm excited. I'm excited about it. So if you ask me a year from now, maybe we can sit down and talk about it.
I'm going to write down here. I'm going to do it, and we'll have a scale here when you come back. Weigh you in.
There we go. Accountability, right?
My poor little old wife. She she exercises like a machine. Okay, she's had 3 stints, and I try to eat steak and fried potatoes every week. Okay, you know what I mean? I gravy and biscuit every morning. But she goes and if she happens to lose a pound, she's so excited. Yeah. Another day I went to the doctor and I lost 6 pounds somehow. And I thought, I don't know how it happened. I don't know what's going on. And then when I told her, I knew she was going to be mad. I can't tell you what. And every time she sees somebody on TV that says, I walk 30 minutes twice a week and I've lost 100 pounds, she gets so mad. Right. She loses all of her religion and everything. But finding that stuff that we're disciplined in is it's a big thing all in life, All right, so let's talk about things. What about money? I mean, is there such a thing as being disciplined in money, or just Brian rake it in? You never have to worry, or what is there? Tell me some keys about money.
Well,
it's important.
It is important. I feel like he works. I don't. I'm a stay-at-home mom, which I work. But I just I take care of the things that need to be taken care of in the house, and the groceries and the food and all the things, and he provides that for us, and that's just that's how we do it.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I think, and I don't know what a woman wants, okay, but a man wants peace and tranquility. When he comes home, he don't want a lot of fussing, fighting, yelling, snorting, growling.
Right.
I mean, they want things, a man wants it peaceful. And I think it's such a big thing to take care of the home. My Kelsey, my youngest daughter, she said her job is to make sure that Andrew, her husband, gets off to work. She homeschools Carter. I mean, she did all these things that she follows through and does, and that's her job. It's a big job to do. Right. Turn around on stuff. And I think it's so important for a mother to do that. And it's been, I don't know, man. I just think it's so important for a mother to raise those kids. I really believe that. We run into that in our life, and Janice tried to work at the same time, and we had such a time out of it, and we had to quit it because it just, and then I babysitted for a while, which you can imagine how that went over. I mean, I would have hired anybody. I did hire this one old girl. She was about half crazy. I mean, to come home and all the blinds were pulled, and they were sitting in the middle of the floor, her and the kids in the dark, but I didn't care. She would take care of the kids, and I didn't have to stay there. But I mean, but to have that mother, but I think that's all part of a man and a woman getting together that are not crazy.
Right.
Okay? But, there's a lot of guys that marry crazy women.
Yeah.
and you think they're going to get better, or a woman will marry a bum.
Right.
Thinking that now I know the Lord can make changes in people's life. Don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not saying, because everybody at one point in our life were a little ragged.
Yeah.
Okay, all right? So, I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? But you weren't exactly marriage material at that point in your life, okay? You wasn't the kind of say they would have put you on The Bachelor and say, let's sign her up, okay? I mean, it would have been, they would have put you on Jeopardy, but not The Bachelor. But when you think about it, you weren't there for the caliber of man that Brian could become. You weren't the caliber of woman. And I know that's a hard thing, but you weren't. Now that don't mean Jesus didn't love you.
Right.
But there's no humans couldn't love you because of what was happening. That's crazy though.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I'd say probably right at 6 months to a year after, going to treatment, and I'd been sober for a little while, and I don't know, it was just like the Lord was just preparing me, and I wasn't sure who it was going to be. I didn't know, I just knew He was preparing me for somebody, and I'll never forget a friend of mine, Abby, back in North Carolina. She would tell me, well, whenever you get ready to start dating again, I want you to think about what it is that you would want out of a husband, and I want you to write it down. Right. So me and a friend of mine, Molly, we wrote it all down, and we took it a step further. We prayed over that, and we became that. Right. And there's no way I could have held. I mean, I couldn't even maintain anything in my previous past life. You know what I mean? But yeah, God just, He completely.
But don't you think, I think that's I think that's so fascinating though, how God will prepare somebody for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Most people just take what's coming along. And if you'll let God sort of prepare that for you, I think, my wife and I were engaged 2 weeks, Janice and I were. And, she came from Tennessee up here. It was just everything, God just put it all together just so beautifully, the way it all happened. And so many of the great things that happen, I believe, are against our will, the things that God structures in our life and brings these relationships together. And I don't know, man, and I think who you're with is so important because it can set your life on such a trajectory that you're in constant shipwreck to shipwreck and failure to failure. Because of who you're with and who you link your heart with.
Right.
And it can be a real. I know that Brian had to trick you, though, because, he's okay, all right? He hasn't been, okay? He's always been a nice, good guy, okay? But, and he owes me money, I talked about the other day, for a camper top. It was a green camper top he got off of me, and I can't remember how much it was. It was like $125 or something, but he got that camper top, and I keep track of what people owe me. That's been over 20 years, I know, but I keep track of those things.
So you need interest on it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's the wisdom of a woman. I got to think that day, Brian owes me for a camper top. But, he's always had a good heart, okay? A good heart. And his mama had a good heart.
Yeah.
Lucille just had a good heart. I liked her. I just really liked Lucille. And his mama was just a good heart. And I don't know, man. And I think a lot of things are heredity so important, and we come through things, our challenges and stuff. We talk about that and how we're raised and come up with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of childhood did you have?
Oh, it was great. I had a great childhood. I was spoiled rotten. I was a daddy's girl, but a mama's world. My parents were older when they had me, and I have brothers and sisters. I have a sister, Paige. I have a brother, Josh, and then my brother, Jay. Today is actually his birthday. He's passed away. But anyway, so growing up, I was the baby. I was the youngest. And so I got my way with everything. I was spoiled rotten, which was not necessarily the best thing as I look back at it now, but I had a great childhood, and my parents did any and everything they could for me. I never went without. And I always had a house full of girls at my house, and it was always fun. It was really fun.
Well, see, you know, what you think about when you talk about that, you know, people might listen and say, well, they're waiting on you to talk about how you grew up in a life of drugs, and this happened in your family, and this happened here, and this is what put you in that position that you ended up in. And it doesn't sound like it's so.
No. I think for the longest time, I did try to blame my life on things that I went through, but now looking back, you know, even from a young age, I was always just wanting to be seen. I had to be the center of attention. I wanted to be seen. I had to be fit. You know, I had to always be around people, and just, I can see now, even from a very young age, that was just kind of setting me up for just what life was going to throw at me, you know, and I can't say that it was anything that I went through in my childhood, because that just would be a lie. It was all decisions I made as I got older.
Okay, let's talk about this, because you're going to raise young children. You're going to raise boys, okay? And I share this a lot. And I think if we don't let our children struggle, they'll never be strong.
Right.
And I think and loving our children so much, and we say this, I want our kids to do better than me, and that's all beautiful, and I understand that. But if they don't even come through some of the things you've come through, as far as struggles and pushing, and I'm not talking about drugs, I'm talking about life, okay? There's a point that we get to with our children, I believe we do too much for them, and we mess them up, okay? And we can spoil them to the point that we mess them up, and I think that's real important. And we do it under the guise of, I want them to do better than me, and I love them, so I want to take care of them. I want to do this, and I want to do that. But it's a little tough to be able to let your kids struggle.
Right. Well, I'll never forget. This was probably a year or two ago. I was praying, and one of my sons, you know, I was praying over him and over some things he was dealing with, and I'll never forget, God just kind of stopped me dead in my prayer, and he said, stop getting in the way of his testimony. And I was like, ooh, okay, you know, like, I hear you, Lord. So yeah, it's one of those things where, especially with the life that I lived before and not being a present mom, it's a lot harder for me to just not be, you know, not to step in and not to do those things. But yeah, I completely agree. You know, some lessons, you know, they have to learn, you know, just like I had to learn. Because if I wouldn't have learned, now, granted, I pray that they never go through what I went through.
That's a whole different thing.
But had I not walked through those challenging things, I wouldn't be who I am today, you know? And I'm proud of who I am today. And that wouldn't be the case if somebody would have pulled me out every time that something was wrong in my life. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I know, and it's a hard line, and we talk about that line you got to go with sometimes, and saying how much can I do till I'm doing too much.
Right.
And one of the things I think is, first thing, you should pile your kids in one room, not make them comfortable. Okay, let them get in there. It builds relationships. It builds the skills in life, the communication when they're all in there together. You know, we forced our daughters to live in the same bedroom. They didn't have their own bedroom. You know what I mean? And my son somehow got his because he smelled bad. You know, they'd always talk, so we had to give him his own room. But the girls, you know, we piled them in there, and when they finally left, we built onto the house and made it bigger. But I think sometimes we got kids that are, we build this nest over and over. An eagle doesn't add rooms on a nest. Okay, it pulls the feathers out so the thorns show through. So I think sometimes with kids, they got to want to go out on their own, and that has to be in them. They have to get away from that fear of, and that's a lot to do.
Right. Yeah. We got a few years for that. So
I listen to you.
I'm just going to enjoy them. I'm going to enjoy them while they're there.
I'm with you about the enjoying, okay? But what I'm saying is, as a mother, see, you're going to be a whole different ballgame, okay? All right, because Janice wants to build a hub house and have all of us live together. You know, I said, yeah, I can see all you women in the same kitchen. That ought to go over like a ton of bricks. First day or so, or all of us men on the same remote control. That would go over like a ton of bricks. But I just think sometimes, and it's fun. I mean, I'm glad we stopped at 3 children, because I told Janice if we'd have went on, we'd probably got a bad one. We'd done pretty good. Okay, I said, but you know, I'm glad we stopped right there where we were. Just let the chips fall where they fell, because they all turned out. I'm proud of my kids. They all turned out good. You know, and I'll just be honest with you. And this is, I've had good buddies of mine that disagree with me. Ministry for me wasn't, especially pastoring a church like I did, was a little tough in some ways. And I'm not whining. I've done well. I lived well. But I just don't know if I ever wanted my kids to go in ministry. I'm just telling you what I think. Okay? And it's not because I'm not whining. I'm not whining like a Democrat. I'm just saying that there's things that I went through that I didn't really want my kids to go through. And they, we pastored a little church and we were blessed. Okay? But it was just there's a difference there. And all of them turned out good and all of them love the Lord. Okay? But they know, and they can look and read the room and can tell you exactly what's going on. I got my youngest daughter gets a little offended when they give her one of those tracts at the fair. What must I do to be saved? Don't they know? So anyway, and they all love the Lord and raising their kids that way. But I just think about it sometimes, and there's a lot to this. Okay. And the thing in ministry too, I found is you have to do what you're supposed to do. Not everything you can do or everything everybody wants you to do, but just do what you're supposed to do. So what do you feel like God has what are you supposed to do?
Well, I've been teaching children's ministry for 4 years now, 3-4 years now. So I love that. I always joke and I make a joke of it, but it's as serious as it can get. But, for so long, I wasn't even trusted with my own kids, and now God has blessed me with everybody's kids, And so in my mind too, and my heart behind it is I feel like too, if you can reach the kids prior to when the world reaches them and they start reaching out for other things, it can save them from a life full of what I went through. So I love pouring into kids. Actually help sing on our worship team. So I love that. And as far as my biggest ministry is my family. My biggest ministry is my husband and my children, and raising them up and loving my husband well. And that's my most important ministry. But God has called me to different things, so still trying to.
But see, I think when you recognize what you said there, that and at this point in my life, that's what God has called me to pastor my wife and my grandkids, and that's where I feel like I'm at. Okay, in my life at this point, I'm at in my life, and you got to know how important it is to your ministries to raise those kids, because you have such a short span of time. I mean, short. It's blinking. It's going to be over. That short span of time to pour into them. And to invest in them, because you can't reinvest later. You have to invest now. You can't back up later. After they repossess your house, you can't take your payment to the bank. And same in kids, you have to invest in them right now while those impressions are there. Because at this point in their life, everything is so big. I mean, that's like at 13, heartbreak is big. Okay, you know what I mean? It's the biggest thing in the world. I mean, and at 10, it's even bigger. And so what you look at in life, when you look at kids, everything now is so big to them. And you're so big to them. And you're the most important person. And the aggravating thing about children is they watch you more than they listen to you. That messes you up. Because, you're thinking, if you say, do not be hateful, and then you turn and say, Brian, shut your mouth. You know what I mean? There you are. Okay? And they watch you. They I've got one grandson, the littlest one, and John Colson, and he's listening to the whole room all the time. And he controls the whole room of us, and he's listening to us, sucking the knowledge out. And I called his dad and told him, I said, and I told my wife, I said, if we go ahead now and succumb to his leadership in our family, that he's going to rule us, by the time he's 10, it'll take all the pressure off of us. I said, because he controls every one of us. But there's such a power there, man, in those kids. But I think what you're saying, I admire that.
Yeah.
It's so important to pastor those children and raise those kids, man.
And I think too, like a lot of times, I know it for myself in the past too, and even sometimes now, like I said, I still struggle with things. I struggle with my mind, those kinds of things. But I think a lot of times, like, I can forget that is my most important ministry, and so I'll go and I'll invest all my time and all my efforts into something else. And then God's so gentle, and, you know, sometimes he just calls you back, you know, all the time he calls you back, but, you know, he's like, look, this is your most important ministry, you know. And so I think sometimes we think that ministry is not staying home and raising kids, and that's an absolute lie. You know, because you have so much time, like you said, to invest in them.
Then it's over.
Yeah. Well,
I'm telling you, you're thinking it's going to be for 40 years, but I mean, if you can hold on to that head for a little while,
right.
and because this is what happens too, they change.
Yeah.
Because you're lucky you got boys, because girls are a totally different animal. Okay, I mean, girls are different. Okay, because there's a chemical imbalance God puts in you that allows us to trick you. I got Bible now. We go back to Genesis. And the serpent. Okay, Adam knew he wasn't supposed to do it. He knew. But the woman got tricked. But there's a thing there that God put in y'all that we can tell you, oh no, I'm really okay. I'm really a good person. And you'll believe us. And now, sooner or later, that chemical starts to wear off like it has now. But early on in your life, I watch them, but girls, you go through those battles with them. But this point you have too with boys, there's a difference there with them, and most of the time there is, but you got that point in life you can sow into them and be good to them. And then, I know we're way off of it, but there's going to come a point in time when there's just you and Brian left.
Yeah.
Okay? And you'll have to buckle up and be ready for that, because then you have this other person. And, you know, Janice and I have been like that for years now. And we have purposed in our life to invest in each other and enjoy each other while we are physically able to.
Right.
Because I'm foolish to think I'm going to feel better in 10 years. I mean, that's just a joke, all right? I mean, I don't see myself that disciplined like you're talking about. I don't sign up for the whole year. I just pay a month at a time. But I think of how we turn around and get that time to invest in them kids and spend time with them and enjoy them.
Right.
And but there'll come a time when it's you and him, and then you'll have to restructure and reprioritize, and that's just important. I mean, I could have got him a little deeper the other night, but I didn't make him make any commitments upon housework and things like that. But you know, as men, you know, this is the way I see it. I would never be hateful to you. You couldn't back me in the corner and make me be hateful to you. So why would I be hateful to the woman I live with that I love?
Right.
I'm not going to be hateful to her. And I think we have to, when we do, we apologize, we stop.
Right.
And we shouldn't have to apologize 20 times a week.
Right.
Okay? If we do, we need to get one of them rubber bands we put on our arm. Okay? Whenever we talk hateful, slap that thing. Or let somebody else do it for you.
Right.
And so you get over it. But to bring peace in the home, have peace when he walks in the door, where he looks forward to coming home. And, you know, that makes a big sense. Makes a lot of sense. Not stopping playing cornhole on the way home.
Hey, he's done that before.
I know he has.
He won a whole tournament that way.
Oh, but I think that's great. I mean, I admire that in you, and I think it's a great thing. I think he is definitely married up. Brian has. I shared that with him the other day. But he's always been a nice guy. He really has. I've never known him to, around me, to have hatred or malice, or I just didn't see that. If he did, I never seen that.
Right.
But it's a good thing. All right, let's see. I have one more thing on it. Okay. We talked about that. What would you say to people that are struggling right now? There's somebody watching and they're struggling. They're saying, I need to get off of these drugs. I need to get off of this. I need to make a change in my life.
Well, if somebody's listening to this that's struggling, there's no coincidence. It's not a coincidence that you're hearing this right now, first off. And just that, you know, it doesn't matter where you've been, what you've done, any skeletons you have, none of that matters. You know, you're worthy, and you deserve recovery, and it's out there. And if whoever is listening to this needs to talk or wants to reach out, you know, I'd be glad to talk to you or to point you in the direction of somebody who can help you. And, you know, like, there is an exceedingly and abundantly much better life than you could ever even imagine. You know, the life that I live today, I couldn't have dreamt up.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's not just for me. You know, it's for everybody who's willing. You know, so there's hope. You know, there's definitely hope out there.
I believe that's the word, the key. There is hope. Because a lot of people feel hopeless.
Yeah.
They feel like there's no hope for them and there's no way out. And I can't never quit.
Right.
I can't never do this. It's sure it was easy for her, but it wasn't. And so many people live their life in there. And I know a lot of people like that, and we all do, that have struggled with those things and go through those things. I'll tell you what I was impressed with the other day. And people, they forget this. Man, you know, yesterday I had to go to Pineville, and I went through Welch and Pineville and Davie and Gary and all over that way. That's a big place. I mean, Welch is a metropolis, okay, when you think about it. I mean, if you're not right up here around Tazewell, Tazewell's just a village, all right, compared to Welch. I mean, how big it is. And I went over at Pineville. There must have been 1,000 cars come through that intersection while I'm sitting at Pineville at the little general store.
Right.
Okay? A beautiful convenience store, and cars and people and houses, and these are big areas. If McDowell County ever decided they just wanted to take Tazewell County away, there's nothing Tazewell could do about it. They could just come in and take it, rename it, annex it off, because it's a big area and a lot of good people. And when you drive along and see beautiful houses, you know, how people built their life right there in those places. And I think it's back where you hang your hat and you begin to build a life in a place and do those things how, I don't know. I see that.
Right.
You know, growing up as a boy, we'd see people build a house in every little holler, up and down on every little hill, and you think, how they even get a deed to that? You know what I mean? To that little place, you know, that little, how did anybody survey that? You know, that's what I think when I see it.
Right.
But I look at it, but there is hope for people,
Yeah.
okay? And I think you've let them know that in your life, and you've let your light shine.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
Transfer of information is what we've done today. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, sir.
You're a blessing.